At the inauguration party, on her very first day as CEO, she smiled into the microphone, looked straight at me, and said, "You're fired." Everyone laughed. 3 hours later, nobody was laughing anymore. I still remember the sound of the glass clinking when she raised her champagne. The room was full of powerful people, investors, journalists, executives. The lights were warm, the music was soft, and her smile was sharp like a knife. She was my junior once. I built her career. And that night, she humiliated me in front of everyone. But let me take you back, because this didn't start at that party. I joined the company 11 years ago. It was nothing back then. Small office, broken chairs, cheap coffee. I worked day and night. I missed birthdays. I missed funerals. I stayed when others quit. When she joined, she was fresh out of business school. Nervous. Overconfident in that fake way. She came to me on her first day and said, "I heard you're the backbone here." I laughed and said, "Just do your work. The rest will come." And it did. For her, I trained her, fixed her mistakes, covered for her failures. When she cried in the bathroom after losing a client, I was the one who stood outside the door and said, "You'll be fine. I'll handle it." Years passed. The company grew. Investors came. Titles changed. Mine didn't. Hers did. She learned one thing very well: how to take credit. Every presentation I prepared, she delivered. Every strategy I designed, she renamed. Slowly, my name disappeared from emails, from praise. But I stayed quiet. I told myself, be patient. Results speak. Then the founder stepped down. And somehow she became CEO. The day of her inauguration, I wore my best suit, not for her. For myself, for the years I gave to that place. The party was expensive. Crystal glasses, cameras everywhere. People congratulating her like she was a miracle. She hugged me when she arrived. "You made it," she said. I replied, "So did you?" Something in her eyes changed. When the speeches started, I stood near the back. I didn't need attention. I just wanted to watch. Then she called me forward. "Before we celebrate," she said into the mic, "I want to make one thing clear. This company is moving in a new direction." People nodded. She looked at me and smiled. "And some people don't fit anymore." The room went silent. She tilted her head and said, clearly, loudly, "You're fired." For a second, I thought it was a joke. Then the laughter started. Soft at first, then louder. My face burned, my ears rang, I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. She leaned closer and whispered, "Security will walk you out." I nodded. I didn't argue, I didn't shout, I didn't beg. I smiled. I took my jacket, thanked the guard, and walked out like I had lost nothing. But inside I was counting. 3 hours. That's all it took. Because what she didn't know was that I never stopped being the backbone. 2 years earlier, when investors started pushing for transparency, I was asked to, temporarily, oversee compliance systems. Quiet role, no spotlight. I said yes. I designed the internal structure, the reporting flow, the data backups, and I kept copies, not illegally, just wisely. I knew how money moved. I knew which numbers were polished. I knew which contracts were signed without proper approval. And I knew one more thing. The inauguration party wasn't just a celebration. It was the deadline. At midnight, a mandatory audit snapshot was automatically sent to the board and regulators. A system I built. A system only I fully understood. As I sat in my car outside, I watched the lights of the building. I checked my phone. 11:47 p.m., I sent one email. Subject: final compliance snapshot, CEO authorization missing. That was it. No anger. No insults. Just truth. At 12:06 my phone rang, I didn't answer. At 12:11 another call, I let it ring. At 12:20 messages started flooding in. "Please call me. There's been a mistake. Come back, we need to talk." I drove home. The next morning my name was everywhere. Not as an employee. As a witness. The board meeting was emergency level. Investors panicked. Regulators froze accounts. Turns out, her new direction involved shortcuts, unauthorized approvals. Numbers adjusted to impress. All traceable. All time-stamped. All approved by her. By noon she was escorted out of the same building she celebrated in. No champagne. No applause. Just silence. At 3 p.m. I got a final call. Her voice was shaking. "You did this," she said. I replied calmly, "No, I just built the system. You chose how to use it." She cried. I ended the call. A week later, the board offered me my job back. Higher title. More money. I declined. I had already accepted another offer. One that valued silence, patience, and experience. On my last visit to the office, I passed the empty CEO suite. Her nameplate was gone. I paused for a moment. Then I walked out. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat by the window and smiled. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's letting someone destroy themselves, with the tools they underestimated you for building. 2 years later, I received an invitation I never expected. Same company. Same board, different tone. They were launching a new division. Clean slate, new leadership. And somehow, my name had come up again. I didn't reply for days. Not because I was angry anymore, but because I had already won. Still, curiosity pulled me in. When I walked into the boardroom, the faces were older. Quieter. Careful. One of them said, "We should have listened to you earlier." Another added, "You were never the problem." I nodded. I know. They offered me a consulting role. Temporary. High-vol, full authority, no politics. I accepted on one condition: no public announcements. No titles. They agreed immediately. During my first week back, I noticed something strange. People straightened their backs when I entered. Not fear. Respect. One junior analyst stayed late one night, just like I used to, he said. "I heard what happened to you. How did you stay calm?" I looked at him and said, "Because anger gives power to the wrong people." That night, as I was leaving, I passed the lobby where her portrait once hung. The wall was empty. No replacement. Just clean space. That's when I understood something. Her real punishment wasn't losing the job. It was being forgotten. Months later, I heard she had moved cities. Changed industries. Changed her name on LinkedIn. No headlines. No comeback story, just distance. And me. I never celebrated publicly. Never posted quotes. Never told my side. Because the people who mattered already knew. The last time I checked the company's annual report, there was a small line in the acknowledgement section. "Special thanks to an advisor whose integrity shaped our future." No name. I smiled. Because some victories don't need credit, they just need closure. And the truth is, when she said, "You're fired," she thought she was ending my career. But all she really did was free me from a place that never deserved my patience in the first place. 5 years passed. Life settled into something quieter, something honest. I stopped measuring days by meetings and deadlines. I measured them by sleep, by mornings without anxiety, by dinners I didn't cancel. Then one evening, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. But something told me not to. "Hello," I said. There was a pause, a shaky breath. "It's me." I didn't ask who I knew. Her voice sounded smaller, stripped of polish. No confidence left to borrow. "I heard you're consulting now," she said. "Independently." "Yes." Another pause. "I need help." That sentence, it landed heavy. Years ago, she wouldn't have asked anyone for help. She would have demanded it. Or taken it. I stayed silent. She rushed to fill the gap. "I'm not asking for a job, just advice. 15 minutes. I don't have anyone else." I looked out the window. City lights. People moving forward. Unaware of old wars. "Meet me tomorrow," I said. Public place. We met in a small hotel lobby. Neutral ground. She arrived early. That alone told me how much had changed. No designer suit, no assistants. Just a folder clutched like a shield. She didn't sit until I did. "I messed everything up," she said immediately. "I thought power was something you take before someone takes it from you." I replied, "Power isn't loud, it's stable." She nodded, tears forming but not falling. "I can't undo what I did to you." "No," I said. "You can't," she swallowed. "But I want to understand why you didn't destroy me publicly when you had the chance." I leaned back and said the truth. "Because I didn't want to become you." That broke her. She covered her face. Not dramatically, quietly. Like someone finally tired of pretending. When she looked up, she asked, "Would you do it again? Stay silent that long?" I answered without hesitation, "Yes." Silence taught me more than revenge ever could. She slid the folder across the table. "This is my new venture. I want to do it right this time." I didn't open it. I pushed it back. "If you want advice," I said, "here it is." She leaned forward. "Never humiliate someone who helped you rise. One day, you'll need their forgiveness more than their skill." She nodded slowly, like she was engraving the words into herself. We stood up. At the door, she said, "I'm sorry." For that night, for the microphone, I met her eyes. I know. And for the first time, I meant it. I walked away feeling something I hadn't expected. Not victory, release. Because the final revenge wasn't her downfall. It was watching her finally understand the weight of what she did, after I had already moved on. And that's how the story really ends. Not with applause, not with headlines, but with one simple truth. The moment she said, "You're fired," she lost control. The moment I stayed silent, I took my life back. Years later, I sometimes replay that night in my head. Not the humiliation, not the laughter, but the moment I chose silence instead of reaction. Because that choice quietly rewrote my future. People assume revenge is loud, that it ends with shouting, lawsuits, or public apologies. They're wrong. The strongest revenge changes you so deeply that the other person becomes irrelevant. One evening, I was invited to speak at a closed executive forum. No cameras, no press, just decision makers. After my talk, someone asked, "What was the turning point of your career?" I didn't mention promotions, I didn't mention money. I said, "The day I was fired in front of a room full of people." The room went silent. I continued, because that was the first time I realized my value didn't belong to a company or a title or someone else's approval. Afterward, a woman approached me. Young. Ambitious. Sharp eyes. She said, "I think I work for someone like her." I looked at her and said quietly, "Then learn everything. Build everything. And never announce your strength." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did, maybe she will later. As for her, I heard one final update. She did launch that small venture. It struggled. Not because she wasn't smart, but because trust doesn't reset as easily as profiles and cities. Last I heard, she was working under someone else now. No spotlight. No microphone. Just doing the work. And I genuinely hoped she was. Because the world doesn't need more people obsessed with power. It needs people who respect consequences. Sometimes, late at night, I smile at how simple it all became. She tried to end me with a sentence. "You're fired." But she didn't understand something basic. You can fire a role, you can fire a position. You cannot fire experience, patience, or quiet preparation. 3 hours after she said those words, her fate was sealed. But my life. It had just begun. And if you're listening to this wondering whether silence is weakness, remember this story. Sometimes the calmest person in the room is the only one who already knows how it ends. There's one last part of this story I never tell out loud. Because it didn't happen in boardrooms or cafes. It happened inside me. A long time after everything settled, I found the old suit I wore that night. The inauguration night. It was still in the back of my closet. I took it out. Ran my hand over the fabric. For a moment, I felt it again, the heat in my face, the laughter, the way my name echoed in my head when she said it into the microphone. "You're fired." I stood there holding the suit and realized something quietly powerful. That version of me no longer existed. The man who needed validation. The man who waited for fairness. The man who believed loyalty would protect him. I folded the suit carefully and donated it the next morning. Not because it hurt, but because I had outgrown it. People sometimes ask if I would change anything if I could go back. I wouldn't. Because if she hadn't humiliated me that night, I might still be shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I might still be solving problems in the dark, while someone else took the spotlight. Her cruelty forced my clarity. And clarity is dangerous, in the best way. Every now and then, I see stories online about executives being publicly fired, mocked, reduced to a moment. And I know what people think when they watch. That person is finished. But I know the truth. That's sometimes the moment the real story begins. Because humiliation only destroys you if you accept the version of yourself your enemy wants you to believe in. I didn't. I walked away quietly. I waited patiently. I acted precisely. And while she tried to make history with a microphone, I changed my life with silence. So if you're listening to this and you've been embarrassed, underestimated, pushed aside in front of others, remember this. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Sometimes, the one who leaves without a word is the only one who already knows exactly how the ending will unfold.